Hello all and welcome to your first session of the QU16 training. So for this session I mainly want to just go through the overall interface of the desk and where you can find things. The desk is fairly simple when you look at it, everything is labelled, but things may be just named as slightly a bit different to what you're used to. So for this session we're going to go through them things right now. So, we're going to start from the top, and this is what you would normally start with when sound checking a microphone. We would start here with a preamp. We normally call that gain, but it is also called preamp. And then we use preamp to get a signal. So we use this, the higher we push this preamp, the louder that source is going to be and how sensitive it's going to be. So typically on a microphone we would run it around about 20 decibels. And then what you'll see is later on in the session when I going through microphones, there's a little graph here, and that's how we find out how much gain we need on a microphone, or how is there too much gain or isn't there enough. So we will use this graph. But here, this is where our preamp is found. Next, we have our high pass filter, or as we like to call it, the low cut. So when using the low cut, we need to make sure that this button is in. So in and green means it's activated. And we simply use this, as you can see on the screen. There's a faint purple line just there, and then as I move that you can see how much low end. So the further I go to the right, the more low end I'm taking. The further to the left, the more low end I'm adding back into the mix. Typically we would use a high pass filter on most channels for microphones. Sometimes you may have to use it for a cabaret. Sometimes if a cabaret plugs in left and right, we may need to just roll off some of that low end. So high pass filter is one of our main tools that we need to use. It's always good to remove that low end from the bottom of a microphone. Now moving over, we have our parametric EQ. You guys shouldn't really have to play too much with this, but I will just quickly go through it for you just so you have a slight understanding. So you have 3 different knobs per frequency. This is our low frequency, this is our low mid frequency, this is our high mid frequency, and this is our high frequency. So see it as in order. So this is all of our top end right here, and this is all our low end just over here. Say for example you do have a microphone that might be a little bit too toppy or a bit piercing on the ears. We would then go over to high frequency, which means our top end. We would use the gain, as you can see now the graph is dropping or raising, so we would use this to cut. Then you have frequency, which is basically what frequency you want to cut. So let's say I want to go over to about 5k or 2k, you would use this to sweep and find the frequency. And then width, as you can see, when I drop the gain really low on this EQ, you can see it getting wider, or you can see it getting thinner. So there's a couple of applications for that. Let's say you do have a pesky frequency that you can see visually where it's coming from. You're getting a bit of feedback. We would actually use this to quickly drop it. So let's just say I have a bit of feedback on the top end around about 2.5k. We would then literally use this. We would make it really, really thin, and then we would drop that down, and now I have now dropped that singular frequency that was causing me a lot of issues. So for example, generally you just want to get rid of some of the top end on a microphone. We would just use the width, and then we would just open it up nice and wide, and as you can see I'm actually taking out quite a lot of the top end. We then move over to pan. Pan is basically your left and right image. So if I have this all the way to the left, that means the channel that I have selected will only go to the left speaker. If I move it all to the way to the right, it goes to the right speaker, and then we keep it in the center. That's when we get a stereo image. Now over to the channels. So what you will notice is most of your QU16s will be on a little thing called custom. So the great thing about custom faders is we can move any channel we want anywhere we want on the desk, which is really handy. So first off, as you can see, our typical channel listings would run from radio microphones 1 to 4. We then have a little space. We then have our desk microphone, which is your booth microphone. We then have your Willow, your Mac, your auxiliary, your cabaret plugin, and then obviously your reverb and delay, which is your master control for your effects. So to select a channel, always make sure you hit the green button. If it's green, it's selected, which is awesome. And then what you'll notice is when I go through the channels, you'll notice that this screen changes. So as long as you hit select, you're on this screen as what is going on with this channel strip. And the great thing about this little screen is it kind of gives you a little bit of an overlay of stuff that's going on. So here you can see we actually have our gain. We can see an overview of our frequency. We can also see if the channels are linked, which is quite an interesting tool. So say for example you have to plug in a cabaret and they are left and right and you don't have a stereo channel linked up. you would then find, oh, actually, I need to make 1 and 2, so it's one channel together. So I'll show you what that means. So if we went to channel, not linked, we go to linked, and now when I raise 1 and 2, you'll notice now it's a stereo channel, which is quite cool. We would typically only use that on our cabaret channels and basically our playback channels, because we want them in stereo, or if you have a cabaret, they will also want to run in stereo left and right. So that's your select button. Just above it, we have our mute button, which is it does what it says on the tin. It mutes the channel. And once you mute that, you'll notice that we run monitors in pre, which basically means the signal goes to the monitors, and whatever I do here, fader-wise, will not affect the monitor level, which is something we should have all of our monitors in. So when your singers are on stage, if they're running in pre, it doesn't matter what I do here, the monitor level is going to stay the same. However, if we are running the monitors in post, that means if I've got my wedges there, and if I just start bringing them down because I think the singers are a little bit too loud on the front of house, that would then also bring the monitor level down as well. We also have here PAFL, pre-fade listen. So if you have a set of headphones, because we always recommend grabbing yourself some headphones and plug it into here, what that means is I can actually listen to this channel separate. I don't have to worry about all the other noise. Say, for example, I just really need to listen to this one singer because there's a few issues with the microphone. If I've got my headphones plugged in, I hit PFL, and then that gives me a pre-fade listen. So that gives you a listen before anything happens here. So the channel could be muted, but you can still preview it. As you can see at the end, we have our left and right. So as long as this left and right button is blue and selected, everything I do here will be in correspondence with what is going on with your speakers on the front of house. However, we also have our mix selects over here. So let's say, for example, I would like some more reverb on my microphone. We have these selections here as well. So effects 1, bring the reverb up. I want a bit more delay. Let's get some delay in there. And then also down here, you will see monitors as well, which basically that gives us our monitors. So if let's say radio 1 needs more monitors, I would hit mix 1 on monitors, and then I would slowly bring that up, and then I've got a good monitor level, but please ensure that you do hit the left and right button back again.